There is no president that can push us back into the closet. There is no government that can strip us of our joy.
It's Pride Month, so get ready for another month of LGBT activists proving once again that they've learned absolutely nothing. We're going to talk about the latest Pride Month drama and where the LGBT community is going astray, plus so much more on today's episode of the Barad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where I take on the craziest ideas from across the internet, our media, and our politics, all from an independent perspective. Up first, you guys know it's June, so get ready for the Pride Month logos, the marches in the street and demonstrations that at times veer into lewd and inappropriate behavior in front of kids, and for the cringeworthy content, although I do expect it to be somewhat more muted this year with kind of the vibe shift and the changing political winds and a big drawdown in corporate support for some of this stuff. But the activist class, the LGBT Inc., the professional cadre of activists and professionals who do this for a living have learned absolutely nothing. And that is incredibly clear from the way they are already celebrating their Pride Month initiatives for 2025. Here is Brandon Wolf of the Human Rights Campaign, the largest activist organization that purports to be about LGBT rights, but is really kind of a Democratic front group, on MSNBC, talking about their Pride theme for this year, which is "These colors don't run."
I think these colors don't run. I think that that spirit of resilience and resistance is about acknowledging that this is a community that has been through incredibly difficult times before and has turned those obstacles into progress. And it's also a declaration that there is no president that can push us back into the closet. There is no government that can strip us of our joy, of our fight for freedom. We're not going anywhere. And Pride is not just going to be a celebration. It's also going to be a protest.
I rolled my eyes so hard when I watched this clip that I think I gave myself a headache, because what do you mean there is no government that is going to push us back into the closet? This is the kind of partisan hyperbole that has discredited the alphabet activists in the minds of so many Americans. Trump is openly supportive of gay marriage and actually appointed the highest ranking gay official in the federal government ever, in Scott Bessent, his Treasury Secretary. So the idea that we're like in the middle of some Trumpian campaign, I have criticisms of Trump, sure, on all sorts of things, but the idea that he's trying to put gay people back in the closet is absurd and laughable and discredits the real debates and issues that can be raised around the different Trump administration's trans policies, some of which I think are common sense, but some of which I do think go too far with this kind of hysterical nonsense and the intentionally inflammatory framing of it all. Seriously, guys, let me show you this. I'm going to put this on screen. As part of their campaign, the Human Rights Campaign's Pride Month campaign, "These colors don't run." They put a bald eagle, so like the quintessential American symbol. They gave it eyelashes, drag queen makeup, wings, all the different pride colors, and painted toenails, and my personal favorite, a fetish harness. Yes, they put the bald eagle in a fetish harness as their Pride Month campaign. They really have learned absolutely nothing. And they are doubling down on the same kind of ridiculous partisan hyperbole and bizarre conflations with irrelevant things like your kinks and your fetishes, which has nothing to do with being gay or lesbian or bisexual or even transgender. And then they wonder why data show that support for gay marriage is going down, not up. New Gallup data show a significant drop in support for same-sex marriage among Republicans of 14 points in the last 3 years, going from 55% in support to just 41% in support. There's been a smaller decline in the overall US public, going from just over 70% a few years ago down to 68%. Support among Democrats remains strong as ever. Now we're going to get into more of this, and in particular, I'm going to show you some of the latest visual monstrosities to come out of the Pride Month corporate wing and how TikTok is celebrating the holiday. And then we're going to revisit a 2018 column that I wrote that has aged like fine wine, titled "I'm Gay, but I'll Pass on Pride Month." All of this coming up after this. Have you ever thought about being a YouTuber? It's a daunting prospect, but it's also the most rewarding thing I've ever done professionally. Key to the success of any great YouTube channel is, of course, the content, but also great thumbnails. And thanks to today's sponsor, Opus Clip, you no longer need to hire an expensive thumbnail designer to get started. Their new feature, Opus Clip Thumbnail, is a one-click AI thumbnail generator. Users simply paste in an unlisted or public video link, and they extract key information to automatically generate personalized, high-performing thumbnails. This transforms a process that can take hours or even days into one that takes minutes and is completely free. For example, I put in a clip from one of my podcasts from a few weeks ago where I discussed the arson attack on Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and implore people to set politics aside and condemn the violence. It came up with this really cool thumbnail just minutes later. Head to the link on screen and in the description to get started and check out this cool new feature from Opus Clip and all their other services that make getting started in content creation easier than ever before. Check it out now, you'll be glad you did. So it wouldn't really be LGBT Pride Month without some graphic design war crimes like this from the Yankees, where they put their symbol, which is ugly because they suck and are trash anyway, go Red Sox, and said Happy Pride Month with the bizarre progress flag colors in the New York Yankees symbol. They are not the only team. This is something of a trend, with the New England Patriots putting up the ugly progress flag on their stadium. The thing that gets me about this every time is these designs, set aside the politics for a moment, are so hideous, so ugly, so diabolical in their visual aesthetic that you know a gay person did not design them. It was definitely one of these spicy straights, one of these activists who claims one of these labels that's really just a heterosexual person. Now we'll take a look at how woke TikTok and Instagram influencers are celebrating the start of Pride Month.
It's the first day of Pride! Hi gays, happy Pride Month!
Happy Pride Month, Trump supporters. May your children be gay and happy, and may you find your fathers on Grindr. Wow! Pride Month. We're celebrating our month.
Wow. With PR like this, I just can't believe support for gay rights is going down. This is my shocked face. Guys, none of this, if you followed my content and my criticisms of the LGBT movement, none of this will be new to you. But I wanted to go back and revisit something from the very start of my political career as a journalist, when I was still actually in college in 2018. I wrote a column that at the time got me a lot of hate and a lot of pushback, but I think aged remarkably well, titled, "I'm Gay, but I'll Pass on Pride Month." I don't normally like to read super long quotes because I want to keep you guys visually engaged and speak more off the cuff, but bear with me this time as I just read directly this column for you guys. It's short. June is nationally recognized as LGBT Pride Month, with events in major cities across the country planned to celebrate gay history and social progress, like last weekend's Pride Parade in Washington, D.C. But even though I'm proud to be gay, you won't find me at any rallies this June. The Pride movement has been hijacked by a left-wing agenda, and some of its advocacy is actually setting gay people back. A quick look at the National Pride website reveals not a neutral agenda advocating for all gay people, but a blatant endorsement of progressivism, even on issues that have little to do with gay rights. Advocate.com, a news website affiliated with the Pride movement, contains a glowing profile of gun control advocate Emma Gonzalez on its homepage, even nominating her for their Hall of Fame. Another article openly calls on gay people to fight for gun reform. The Pride rallies last year in New York, Boston, and Los Angeles could easily have been mistaken for the gun control-oriented March for Our Lives, pro-choice Women's March, or any other left-wing rally. Rainbow flags reading, "Make America Gay Again," openly mock President Trump's signature slogan and ignore the obvious reality that America has never been more gay-friendly than it is in 2018. One anti-Trump chant at last year's DC rally went viral. "We're here, we're queer, get that Cheeto out of here." Apparently, so-called advocates of LGBT equality don't think that gay people are capable of supporting gun rights or President Trump, even though he won 15% of the LGBT vote. The 2017 Charlotte Pride rally even went so far as to bar a pro-Trump gay group, Deplorable Pride, from entering a float in the parade because their version of Pride was deemed anti-LGBTQ. For all their talk about gay rights, too many in the Pride movement don't think gay people should have the right to think for themselves. I may not personally support Trump, but I want no part of a movement that strips gay people of our individuality. By conflating gay pride with an anti-Trump attitude and support for progressivism, advocates insinuate that gay people must be liberal, and in doing so, they succumb to the same stereotyping they claim to be resisting. An authentic approach to LGBT equality would treat gay people as individuals with different life experiences and values that shape our political views, not just shove us into a box with Bernie Sanders. The sinister side effects of the modern Pride movement don't stop there. It's understandable that after decades of oppression and discrimination, gay people might want to let loose and celebrate their sexuality, but too often these marches devolve into the same stereotype of sexual deviancy that they're supposed to be dispelling. A 2015 Pride rally got national news coverage after an ISIS flag featuring dildos and butt plugs was mistaken for the real thing. At almost any Pride event, you'll find scantily clad marchers, rainbow-themed sex toys, and profane posters. The hypersexualization of the Pride movement is so extreme that it's enforcing the biases some Americans still have against gay people. Attitudes toward gay rights are shifting in the right direction, but a portion of the country remains deeply opposed to homosexuality and views it as a deviant, immoral lifestyle. How will we change their mind? This isn't an easy question, but progress certainly won't be promoted by streaking through the streets in the nude, as some men did at last year's Pride rally in New York. If anything, real societal acceptance comes through assimilation. After all, that's how we won public support for same-sex marriage. Jonah Goldberg writes about this in his book Suicide of the West. Why did the struggle for gay marriage succeed? Because it appealed not to radicalism, but to bourgeoisie values about family formation. At the Republican National Convention, tech entrepreneur Peter Thiel said, "I am proud to be gay, but most of all, I am proud to be an American." A nervous moment passed, then the conservative-filled stadium exploded in applause. Don't get me wrong, the Pride marches aren't all bad. They do place important emphasis on AIDS awareness, and gay love is worthy of recognition. But as long as the Pride movement puppets progressivism and engages in self-defeating hypersexualization, I won't be joining in on the celebration. So some of the references in this column are dated, obviously, but I think the general thrust of it, and that's the thing about being a writer, your words are forever, and some things I've written have aged very poorly, but I think the thrust of this aged remarkably well. I warned for a long time that the hyper-partisan approach, the conflation of being gay and gay rights with an unrelated democratic agenda would come back to bite gay people. I warned that this hypersexualized approach, I just saw a clip today from a Pride march where men are twerking in thongs in front of children, would come back to bite us. And I think to some extent it has. The one piece of this dynamic that I didn't write about in this column, partially because it hadn't fully, I think, come into force yet, or it had, and to some extent I wasn't fully aware of it, was the dangerous conflation of gay rights and gay acceptance with a deeply radical gender agenda. From medically transitioning minors with unproven and life-altering treatments based on dubious diagnoses of gender dysphoria, to fads like non-binary that have no actual basis and strike most people as nonsensical, to totally unreasonable positions like putting male sex offenders in women's prisons and ignoring the important role that biology plays when it comes to sex-segregated sports. The LGBT community, and particularly the gay community, has allowed itself to be tied to deeply, deeply unpopular and radical ideas. And now people are rejecting it and rejecting the whole package. I call on people to have nuance and support some things, but not others. That's the approach I've always taken, and I think people should take, but it's just a true thing about human nature that people tend to be black and white thinkers. And when you present them with this, what seems like a binary choice, support LGBTQIA2+, or don't support it, and supporting it means supporting absurd and really morally reprehensible things, they're going to just reject the whole thing. At least a lot of people are. So yes, I blame trans activists and the mainstream LGBT community for the declining support. Sure, you could say there's like far-right grifters and blowhards and culture warriors who have beaten their chest and rallied the troops against gay people and against trans people in what I think are at times really inhumane and unkind ways, and sometimes in demagogic ways where they use like one example to paint all gay people a certain way, even though that's just an anecdote and not data. But y'all didn't have to give them so much ammunition, right? They didn't have to go conjuring up fake stories or find people with 10 followers. The LGBT movement gifted them these insane policy positions to rally against. Online progressivism gifted them figures like Jeffrey Marsh, Dylan Mulvaney, and Lily Tino to use as their enemies. I mean, Democrats literally invited Dylan Mulvaney to the White House to interview President Biden. So yes, some of the backlash is because right-wing people who have always been against gay people have kind of ran with it. This would have been a lot less effective if they didn't have so much to work with. Anyway, guys, I'll get off my soapbox here, but this is why I don't support the modern alphabet movement. I've never been on board with the Pride Month mainstream celebrations, and why I think that this movement is headed in the wrong direction. And I just hope that there's a course correction before it's too late. What do you guys think? Do let me know in the comments. I always take the time to read the comments. I love hearing what you guys have to say. Do hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. And now we're going to talk about another wild story, because Tinder just announced a controversial policy change that has people all worked up. So if you don't know, Tinder is the dating app, and I say dating in air quotes because some people use it like a hookup app, but some people actually do meet on there and date. Well, they just announced plans to try out a height filter that would allow people to set a minimum height or screen out people of certain heights from showing up in their feed. And people have thoughts, including me, which I'll get to my thoughts in a moment. Newsweek reports, Tinder's new height filter sparks fierce debate. The end of Short King Spring may be in sight as the summer months arrive and the popular dating app Tinder tests a height filter. A spokesperson for Tinder told Newsweek, "We're always listening to what matters most to our Tinder users, and testing the paid height preference is a great example of how we're building with urgency, clarity, and focus." When it comes to dating, preferences about height have often sparked debate. A 2013 study from Science Direct found that women prefer their partners to be 8 inches taller than them, while men prefer to be 3 inches taller than their partners. So one important thing to note is that this isn't going to be a hard filter, so if somebody doesn't meet your height requirements, they won't necessarily be totally locked out of appearing in your feed, but it will just heavily skew in a preference in terms of who it shows you. Though height filters aren't new among dating apps, and height preferences for both men and women have been long well documented, the new filter has sparked a fierce debate online. The tweets that are going viral about this discourse are quite something. On X, one user wrote, "Men and women alike are derangingly obsessed with men's heights in theory, but it doesn't really translate IRL. Every day I live my short guy life and it's not much of an issue. Meanwhile, the popular wisdom on being a 5'6" man is kill yourself now." Other users asked for a weight filter for women. User Rich Cooper wrote, "When is age and weight verification coming for women? Do we get a weight filter?" User Crypto King commented. Though the filter has upset some social media users, others have poked fun at the online response. One user wrote that it was hilarious seeing short men act like they're oppressed. A couple more of the diabolical tweets that were going viral about this. One ex-user wrote, "Not to side with the men here, but why do women 5'3" and under have such a strong preference for men 6 foot plus? You are a hobbit." 5'8" is tall enough. You can't even tell when your 5'8" boyfriend is lying about being 6 foot because you're so short. Bodybuilder Jeff Nippard wrote, "This really isn't a big deal. As a short man, if a woman doesn't find you attractive because of your height, then why would you want to be with her anyway?" So I think this story is really interesting because it gets at the very existential problem with dating apps. And I say this, here's the tea, here's the lore. My boyfriend and I met on a dating app, but it wasn't Tinder. So a lot less information and screening is required on that other app. But I think that generally, I mean, height preferences or these other things are real and they're valid, but anything that serves to prohibit people from connecting as sort of a litmus test or a hard pass. If there's one thing you see in someone's bio or one trait they don't have, and then it's a hard swipe left, I think that's why dating apps don't work out great for a lot of people. Because when you meet someone in real life, or you meet someone online but then meet them in person, and then you see them as a full human being with like layers and dimensions and a ton of aspects to them, if you then discover one thing about them that maybe if you're just swiping would have caused you to swipe left, you're probably going to be okay with it. I mean, I'll give you a good example. If my boyfriend and I had seen each other on Tinder and he had seen journalist listed in my bio, he might have swiped left just at that because he had such a negative view of journalists, and I can't really even blame him. So we may never have met, and once he got to know me and learned more about what I do, he actually agreed with a lot of it and thought it was interesting. But in the same way, I mean, if you're a woman and you set your height filter to 6'1", there's probably some 5'11" guys out there who, or 5'10" guys out there who are still taller than you, who, if you actually got to know them, might be perfect for you, and you're just limiting your choices. Of course, men do this in the opposite direction to women, and I'm hardly an expert in dating dynamics for heterosexual people. But this kind of thing did sum up to me the broader problem with dating apps that I think has so many young people unfulfilled. The fact that Tinder has so many monthly users that just keep coming back and back is not a great ringing endorsement of it. And I think it's because these dating apps create what I would call like the illusion of unlimited options and have people searching for like this mythical white whale of like a perfect person that checks a gazillion boxes, when in real life, your soulmate or the right person for you is going to be a human, and no humans are perfect. They all have things about them that maybe aren't ideal and things about them that are amazing and special. And so this, box checking approach where one thing just disqualifies someone is kind of inherent to dating apps in a way it's not inherent to real life. But I think it's a real obstacle to actually finding the right person. What do you guys think? Do you understand the need for a height filter? Are you just worried? The other thought I had is like, is it just going to encourage men to lie about their height more, which is already an epidemic? Let me know in the comments, and do hit that like button while you're at it. Up next, more entries in a recurring category of discussion we have on this show called Democrats Have Learned Absolutely Nothing. This time, it features more genius insights from failed Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz and the lovely and brilliant ladies of The View. Let's take a listen to what Tim Walz has to say.
The governor's being mean, and the governor's speaking out on that. Well, maybe it's time for us to be a little meaner. Maybe it's time for us to be a little more fierce. Because we have to ferociously push back on this. And again, I'll speak to my teacher colleagues in here. The thing that bothers a teacher more than anything is to watch a bully, to watch this bully, and to stop it. And when it's a child, you talk to them, and you tell them why bullying's wrong. But when it's adult like Donald Trump, you bully the shit out of him back. You push back.
Wow, guys. Tim Walz has figured it out. No wonder Kamala Harris tapped this stunning genius to be her vice presidential nominee. Democrats just need to be meaner. They really just need to go harder in terms of being anti-Trump and insulting and mocking and deriding and bullying people, Trump and presumably his supporters. Because from Hillary Clinton and her basket of deplorables to the media's breathless coverage of how Trump is every bad word under the book, constantly everything up at an alarm level of 1,000 out of 100, that has worked amazingly well in the recent years that we've had Trump at the forefront of our politics, hasn't it? We just need to bully him back. Yeah, that's going to do it. Or, and here's a crazy take, you could offer people a sane and reasonable alternative, not descend into Trump's juvenile antics that he gets away with. It's just kind of built into his personal and political ethos. I don't know how he gets away with some of the stuff that he does, but people just aren't fazed by it. When y'all do it, people are not going to like it. You're not going to be as good at it as he is, because he is funny and he is charismatic, no matter what you think of him. And you're just going to look like aimless. That's the number one thing for Democrats these days. They just look adrift, like they don't know how to be a meaningful resistance to Trump or alternative, and they're just flailing desperately. And that's exactly what this clip from Tim Walz comes off as. But I guess this approach is still better than what some liberal commentators are saying, which is that they just need to double down on woke victim politics. The conversation about Democrats investing millions to try to figure out how to appeal to young men, when the answer is obvious, stop demonizing them so much, prompted one of the hosts of The View to say this.
You want to know what I think? I think it's a waste of money. Maybe these guys should spend their money on teaching men to not be such sexists. Maybe that's
it. But the stats don't bear that out now that we've seen the election results. Donald Trump.
Gee, I wonder why men are not enticed by the modern Democratic Party that keeps scolding them as irredeemably sexist and pretending that that's why people voted against Kamala Harris when it's simply not. And what does that even mean? Invest money in teaching men not to be sexist. Yeah, brilliant plan there. Sounds like another get-rich-quick scheme for the Robin DiAngelos of the world, like the DEI consultants. I'm sure most of that money would be funneled into bizarre consultancies where they teach like woke nonsense and would have no real impact anyway, and it totally ignores the actual problem, which is not that men are sexist. That's not why Kamala Harris lost. It's that your idea of how to appeal to men is to tap people like Tim Walz, who will go and say, well, I know how to draw up a plan, run a pick six, when that's not even what a pick six is. A pick six isn't a play you run. Or when they lean on white dudes for Kamala Harris and it's a bunch of like soy boy Gen Z TikTokers. Like they really just don't get it at all. The closest I think I've seen anyone come to getting it is Pete Buttigieg, who is a prominent figure in the Democratic Party, who is going on the bro podcasts and talking about how we need to be less scoldy as a party. But then you have some people like Joy over here saying the absolute opposite and doubling down on all the idiocy. And even Biden himself said this recently that, Kamala lost because of racism and sexism and all this woke victim nonsense. If they want to become appealing to just Americans in general again, forget about men, just you don't need to pander to them. Just offer a sane alternative. Speak to people's actual needs and concerns and stop with all the annoying identity stuff. And also get control of your progressive base and make them stop openly supporting terrorism. Just a thought. Just a wild thought. Take a listen to this other clip from The View.
Tesla dealerships are being vandalized. But why I say this is he said...
Yep, that's right. The audience, the live studio of the audience, clapped and cheered and sarcastically awed at Tesla dealerships being burned to the ground. The Democratic Party has a serious problem with political extremism, with violent extremism. We've gone over this in the polls, whether it's people's outright support for political assassinations against the likes of Donald Trump, or it's their bizarre cult-like worship and support for alleged murderer Luigi Mangione, or them just openly cheering and supporting as innocent people are victimized by Tesla vandals who are just targeting random people's cars or burning down buildings, as if that's some socially acceptable form of protest rather than incredibly dangerous and rightfully illegal. This version of the Democratic Party that does not excise this radical, violent, extremist streak is not going to be popular, is not going to catch on. Most Americans are against political terrorism, but the base of the Democratic Party, at least a huge chunk of it, is not. That is a very real problem. And until it changes, no amount of expensive consultants or sending people on dude podcasts is going to change the fact that the Democratic Party is hopelessly astray and just utterly unappealing to most Americans who aren't totally out of their minds. Other than that, though, they're doing amazing. They clearly don't need my advice. Things are just going great for them. Keep it up. Keep up the great work. Okay, everybody, I'll leave it there on that one for now. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. Do hit that like button before you go. Comment with your thoughts, yada, yada, yada. Thanks to Opus Clip for sponsoring today's episode. And with that, we'll talk again real soon.